My name is Scott Mann. I'm the director of the Stability Institute, and I'd like to thank you for watching another one of our video interviews related to stability in Afghanistan. And today we're very fortunate to have our first ever interview with members of the Afghan government, and we're discussing some of the more salient and relevant stability problems that all of us are dealing with in Afghanistan today. And I've asked Dr. Sibghatullah as well as Nader Yama to come and talk to us today on the issue of subnational governance in Afghanistan. And I can't think of two better gentlemen to come in and have this conversation with. And so for our members at the Stability Institute at home who are watching this, we're going to focus this conversation on the aspect of subnational governance and the role that it plays in stabilizing rural Afghanistan and to help connect the villages to the formal Afghan governance structure. So with that, gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for coming, and I wonder if we could start with you, Nader, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to talk about some of the key issues on subnational governance. So my name is Nader Yama. I'm the Director for Strategic Coordination in IDLG, working with IDLG almost for 3.5 years. The work I do is basically look at the strategic issues pertaining to subnational governance, find the gap, where the gaps are, follow up on the national priority programs, coordinating between donors and IDLG and other entities we share activities with, and also somehow providing support to the other directorates that they have specific functions to support local entities.
Okay, great. And Dr. Siddiq, tell us about yourself. Thank you very much. I work with IDLG since past 2.5 years, and I started with a program that was focusing on improvement of services in government at district level, establishing government in places where it did not existed before, and also delivering those services that government has since the democratic government was established. This government has promised with people. So we were, through that program, trying to take those services to at least to the minimal promise level or committed level. That program continued. It still continued. I remained with that program for 2 years, and this year I moved to a new department that we established called Department of Local Programs and Coordination, which is in a sense continuation of or implementation of what we learned during the first 2 years of the district delivery program.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And what we might do now is just pass the mic back over to Nader, and I'm going to ask you to maybe begin with if you could talk a little bit about the Independent Directorate of Local Governance and what its charter is in promoting governance down to the community level.
Thank you very much. I think it's an important question. IDLG as an entity within the government structure has been created in August 2007. And the purpose was to have an effective way of improving subnational governance. It used to be part of the functions were part of the other ministries, and Ministry of Interior dealing with administrative structure and issues of the local entities, Office of Administrative Affairs. They used to support local councils. So those functions were taken from those entities and added on policy issues. As of then, we have this Independent Directorate of Local Governance. So the mandate is to support the 4 entities at the local level, which is the provincial governor offices, 34 provincial governor offices, 271 district governor offices, 158 municipalities. And of course, 34 local councils, and eventually we're going to have a single district representation at district level. So it would be 371 district councils. It has 4 core functions. The first function is to provide the policy guidance for subnational governance entities, how they can interact, how they can work together. The second one is to support local administration, which is the PGOs and DGOs, or provincial government offices and district government offices, with the equipments, with the capacity, with the building institutions, providing guidance. The third function is to support municipalities, reform municipalities, building capacity, promote and increase revenue at the municipal level. And the final one is to support local entities, representative entities. So in terms of making the local councils to represent effectively their constituencies and the deal with the conflict resolution issues, address grievances, and enable the people to be part of decision making. So this is an entity that's a policy type of entity and mandated to deliver services only in the area of municipalities or urban service delivery.
Okay, and that's a fantastic rundown. And Dr. Subgatullah, I know that you tend to work at a local level. So I wonder if possibly you could build on or expand on what Nadir just talked about, and how IDLG provides local services, district and at that level.
At district level, one of the important functions that Independent Directorate of Local Governance has is to create coordination and synergy amongst other government ministries, and also to convey the district level issues back to the provincial and the capital of the country, to the central government. IDLG has been doing that through different programs to support services of other ministries are providing. Currently we have about 5 or 6 programs for improving that. We are addressing issues of the local councils, issues of the infrastructure at the subnational level, in some cases directly, in some cases through advocating at the central level. The district delivery program that IDLG implemented contributed to issues of the subnational governance. For example, it brought back the challenges and problems of the subnational services that are mandate of different ministries back to center and communicated it to the line ministries. Also, it created these provincial level coordination committees for improvement of services at subnational level. It also brought the challenges of the judiciary back to the central level and created, actually conveyed that to the existing mechanisms that could improve the services of judiciary sector. Also, IDLG helped to establish the working group of rule of law, which again in its turn contributed to improvement of different issues of judiciary. For example, not having enough judges and prosecutors at district level. Second issue was their salaries, improvement of salaries through changes to the grading system of the prosecutor's office. So through these different programs, IDLG contributed, and it's continuing to do that work.
Okay, and I think it's important to note that for our members in the Stability Institute, the mechanism to work with the Independent Directorate of Local Governance at the national level is actually, the acronym is CMOC, but it's the Civil Military Operations Center. It's a national entity that's based in Kabul, works very closely with these gentlemen and helped facilitate this interview. But in the areas where you're working locally, you will have a district augmentation team or a provincial augmentation team. They then reach up to the regional Civil Military Operations Center, who can tie into these IDLG representatives. And while that sounds like several layers, actually can connect pretty quickly and help identify things like the absence of personnel at the district center or any issues that we see occurring there as well, where we want to communicate with you. Are there other ways that we can communicate where our people are operating at the village and district level? What are some suggestions on how we can better communicate with IDLG on things that we're seeing at our level that we know you would want to know about?
I think at the district level, identification of the existing mechanisms, that will be the first step. For example, some districts do have councils. They might be the district development councils, or they might be the social outreach councils. There might be some other councils like Council of Tribal Elders, Shura of Maliks, or the village elders, and different others. So that will be one mechanism that people who work at the district level, they can connect themselves to, and then that council is in most of the districts already in continuous contact with the district and provincial authorities. Another mechanism that will be probably more provincial center, not district center, and that will be the provincial development council, and also the provincial administrative committee. I'm talking about provincial part of the contact, establishment of contact, because in some districts, when the teams go, they might not find the appropriate mechanisms.
Right.
Maybe the tashkil positions are not already filled. Maybe the district development assembly is not established. So in that case, it will be useful to contact the provincial level people and bring issues directly to the provincial level. Mr. Reem, do you want to add to it?
Thank you very much, Dr. Seb. I think couple of things just want to add. The way interaction was happening in the past, at a time where everybody was running and everybody was trying to quickly produce results, and that in itself, while being by good intention, somehow sometimes seeing that a particular effort was bypassing a certain level of the government structures. So if there's an issue at the district level, I think the district governor, the district entities, the district councils should be contacted. Particularly if an issue that would be possible to be resolved by that level, not necessarily need to be brought up to the province, and that would in itself cause problems. From other perspective, it would be also a good way, a particular way forward. There would be the focus should be building the capacity and systems of the government by using the capacity and by using the systems. So making the district governor, if it's an issue that can be dealt by him, then let him to bring it up to the province. Or there were issues that would have been possible to deal with at the local level were brought to the center. So having IDLG contacting where that issue was could be targeted and resolved by the governor was causing other problems, having IDLG contacting and bring that issue back to the province. So those principles of seeing how a sustainable way of dealing with the issues and having the entities involved and having the practice of ownership and leadership practiced will be the key thing, the way forward, as you target the short-term sustainability efforts, link them with the longer one, where the government would be moving on with a common function improvement to target to address those issues.
No, I think that's a great point, and I think certainly as we move into transition, it's imperative that we work closely with you to ensure that where we can, we're helping build that human capacity at the district level, and it's making its way up. So point well taken. Another question I have for you is many of our guys working out in the rural areas often they're starting to ensure that we're not working at cross purposes of the Constitution of Afghanistan, the intent of subnational governance. And in many of these areas where we're working, we are working with the informal systems that are out there, the traditional systems that are out there. And while we're making efforts to better understand them, we want to make sure that we're not working at cross purposes of the Constitution. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about how the Constitution acknowledges formal and informal systems. And then a second part to that question is to what degree should our members learn about the Afghan constitution, and where could they go to do that?
Thank you very much. I think it's a very valid question, particularly the Constitution of Afghanistan proposes and clarifies 5 levels of governance. So it's central government, it's provincial government, municipality, district, and village governance. So 5 layers of governance. Formally, elections at all levels of local councils or representative bodies. But meantime, it provides the ground for informal structures. Anybody has the right to be part of associations, councils, and so on. Currently, we have only until provincial level, we have the elected councils. So understanding this unitary system and the level of governance will clarify what is possible at the local level, what is not possible, and what is possible within the unitary system. So that is something that would require clarification, would require more of understanding broadly what is in the Constitution and what is happening. But if you go back to the history, what wasn't at the local level was government, not governance. So, and I think there's lots of good institutions, good practices of governance, and still that is the case, where the government or the formal governance structures are not there, but all issues are being dealt with through the informal structures. What would require is we need to see that how until the elections will come up at the district level or village level, how we're going to evolve those informal structures so that they effectively function within the limits of constitution, or that will not breach the law.
And I think on the subnational governance policy, that's also a good document that people working at district level can refer to and also can read and get information about role of maliks and village elders. But beside this, there are other important things at village and district level that might not be most probably not included all in the, or we were not able actually to include all of those in the subnational governance policy. For example, important issue of collective work, that culture exists, and it was a very useful, still a very useful tool to keep the Karez irrigation system, which is very important, or keep that running, keep roads or inter-village roads in winter clean of snow. That's also through this collective work. We call it ashar. In that ashar, and people who do establish that or do come together and decide that what we want to do, those are people that we might not have specifically mentioned in our policy, but they do exist. Sometimes they are maliks, sometimes they are arbabs, sometimes they are the mirabs, or the people who manage the water distribution. So those are also important for people at district level to know. Any interventions that we want to have at district and village level, let us say, for example, projects to create employment, or projects to make some small projects, but on a larger geographical scale in so many villages at the same time. The Ashar and Malik's role and Arbab's role is very important for that. Maybe in those cases, the formal government will not be able to mobilize so many people, but the informal structures can do that.
There's a point I want to make to that, Dr. Subgatila, that I think is critical here. And I had the same conversation with Deputy Minister Ismati from MRRD. And the concept of ashar, the collective work. In many areas, our folks go in and pay large amounts of money through SERP projects and other things to achieve what you just described, and in many cases undermine the existing informal structures by a failure to understand what you just talked about. And I think, so you've made a brilliant point there that not only should we pay attention to the subnational governance policy, which we will get on the website, but also, again, working to understand those informal systems like collective work so that we don't inadvertently undermine it with financial applications towards something that would already occur in many places.
Yeah. I just want to have another example of quick programmatic approaches to target issues of stability in those critical districts. Dr. Seward was talking about these social outreach councils, which were formed to somehow contribute to the stability of that particular district. But programmatically, we're paying stipends to the people who were part of these councils, which is not the case in any informal structure of the government. People are voluntarily, they're part of those councils. By paying money, so basically you overshadow those wonderful governance institutions, and which wouldn't be sustainable. And it's a clear example, again, ASOP, that's why the program was stopped. So sometimes by moving quick, fast, or targeting short-term objectives, you overshadow the long-term objectives, the more sustainable objectives of improving governance or building or making the current ones work better rather than creating new ones, or overshadowing or destroying the good institutions that are already there.
Right. No, I think this is a larger point that I really want to hopefully leave with our members is, and this is a theme that is continuing to emerge, and it's that if we rush too much to this thing to achieve results, and a lot of our guys are very conscientious and they want to be impactful on their time in Afghanistan. So many times well-intentioned actions to achieve quicker results on one person's rotation can often lead us to overlook the more enduring aspects and create and cause harm. And so we've already said two areas where informal structures have actually been damaged, or at least overshadowed, in some places damaged, by moving too quickly. And I think that will continue to be an enduring theme at the Institute that we're going to try as we go into transition to over-communicate this to our members, that we need to slow down a bit and understand not just the formal structures, but the informal structures as well. You mentioned earlier, Dr. Sibgatullah, that some of the local structures that have traditionally performed very well at the local level have been damaged to some degree and have undergone a lot of change in modern day. I wonder if maybe each of you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes, if we look back to, let's say, 50 years or 100 years ago, or history of society in Afghanistan, in different parts it had established structures of governance, of communication, of decision-making. And those structures were not established or created in 5 years or 4 years. They were a result of the previous centuries of turmoils and difficult times for Afghans, sandwiched, I will call it sandwiched between two empires of the Mughal empires of India and Safavids, and other from Iran side. So they had come up with these solutions for solving their problems. And those existed till very recent times. Late King of Afghanistan, Zahir Shah, also utilized that system of Jargah, system of Maliks, role of ulama or religious leaders in the society. That was very prominent. Unfortunately, in past 30 years, the concept has remained there in the books very strongly, but when we look to it in practice, that has been damaged. The stronger role that a Jargah had 50 years or 100 years ago, it is still there, but not with that strength and not with that back from the central government as well as from people. On the people side, the role that a traditional religious leader had is damaged. Currently, more younger people are in lead role on the religious side, and then other system, Maliks. Maliks used to be connected with the central government, and they will have a formal and informal role. That is also quite weakened in past few years. So those are some of the things that I think should be considered while we work in district with the concept that we read in books. So that concept needs to be looked for first on the ground, if it really exists with that strength or has it changed. So that's my thinking about this matter. Yama, do you want?
I think it's very much inclusive, but the last thing I would just add on more emphasis on role of religious scholars and where people really listen to them. We were not really using them as effective as we should. Particularly in the case of outreach, in the case of mobilization of the people. In some cases, we've just bypassed them, where they were seen themselves disconnected with the government, and that's why they started to be preaching and discussing or being information against the government. So I think, which is the larger part, and more attention, particularly in the case of stabilities. They have the 24 hours entities where people have access to them, where none of the government systems and mechanisms is in that level. So trying to find out how we can effectively involve them, effectively get them to contribute and support. And I think much can be resolved in the area of stability, in the area of sustaining those governance and development initiatives. And pretty much inexpensive to move on with.
Okay. And I wonder if we could wrap up with just a brief, if you could give your thoughts on how important it is to work together as a network to solve these subnational governance issues as we go forward in the transition, and to utilize our network of expertise in ways that we haven't before.
I just want to briefly respond to that. I think for the subnational level, we do need to be very strongly interconnected between governance, government part with judiciary, and also the police, or for example, role of police in rule of law, not just as a security entity. That should also come up, or role of district council shall come out of the development also to political and decision-making issues. Currently, we are looking to it just as a development entity. So I think we do need to look to all these aspects and bring them together.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seb. I think the issue of stability, the issue of governance, security, and development need to be seen as a holistic approach. I think there is lots of good practices started, and particularly now being shared by the efforts of all those entities in the framework of transition. So those practices need to be institutionalized. And that institutionalization would require clear guidelines, turning the good practices into common institutions, push from the center to provinces. But the scenario way forward is that we can't do everything, and we have to stop doing everything. Focusing on the key efforts during the transition, and building on the current coordination mechanisms, not creating new ones. And I think there's already good structures. We just need to keep on with that and more institutionalizing those practices. Thank you.
Okay. Nader, Dr. Sabiatullah, this has been a great interview, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us. I hope that you'll come back and continue to talk to us and educate our members about subnational governance. Until next time, this is Scott Mann, Director of the Stability Institute. Thanks for watching this issue on subnational governance, and we'll see you next time.